This is a Viva PR podcast.
What if we use our expertise and our knowledge to outreach to media whom we know and tell the truth? Before, I would never imagine myself doing comms in defense tech or cybersecurity. I remember there was a wave of the words of support from different partners, and I was reading them crying.
Do you remember where you were in February 2022 when Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine and the bombs started falling across the country? Our guest today, Petryk, is a Kyiv-based PR professional who woke up to that horrific reality on that February morning. As an experienced communications expert, Yulia made a crucial decision to stay and fight in the best way she could. This isn't just a story of tanks and missiles. Russia is deploying lies, misinformation and disinformation as weapons. It's what Julia calls special cognitive operations. So, within hours of the first attacks, Julia and two of her colleagues launched an initiative called the PR Army. They used their communications expertise to counter Putin's propaganda machine. Her story is a powerful one. It reveals how modern warfare extends beyond the battlefield into the realm of information, and it shows how skilled communications has become an unlikely soldier in the front line of truth. But more than that, this is a very human story. It's a reminder to all of us that behind the headlines there are real people. This is essential listening or viewing through YouTube channel. Let's get into it. Julia, lovely to meet you face to face. Thank you for coming all this way to London.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you for arranging everything for this recording to take place in a fantastic district of London. Thank you.
Shall we start by just learning a little bit more about you and your early career before we go into the kind of what things are like today?
Let's do that. Yeah. So I have 2 degrees. I am a teacher of English and I'm a master in marketing. And I was looking for the ways to combine those 2 passions of my life. Before I was taking my first business job, I gave a birth to my daughter. And I was curious what will be the best solution to combine everything that I love, my family, my passions in profession, English and communication, marketing, creativity. And I ended up in PR. Back then, I was called as a marketing writer. My daughter is turning 21 in a couple of days. And back then, 21 years ago, it was not a question of remote work at all. No. It didn't exist. And that's why I ended up in tech. That was the only industry that was a bit closer to remote work than the rest of industries and niches. That's why I started in a tech company as a marketing writer, combining my multiple roles as a mom, as a wife, as a professional, and I loved PR, and I saw how natural it is for me to communicate, to build stories with senses. And at the same time, when my daughter got sick, I was able to stay home and work at least one day remotely. So this is how it all started.
Oh, right. So in the kind of years and months before the invasion, what was kind of work and life like? What was your kind of daily routine, and what was your career then?
Back then, I was head of PR in a software development company in Ukraine, and I would say that I had pretty traditional work routine for a head of PR. I had a team. I devoted a lot of time to mentoring, tutoring, educating and inspiring people around me. I did media monitoring, I did PR strategies, I did PR plans, media coverage reports. So pretty, routine. So in Ukraine, we don't have that strict differentiation in what type of PR you are. Usually we are like a jack of multiple trades. In Ukraine, like you are universal, you are generalist in PR, you should do and be capable to do everything. And in the evening, I was a loving wife and a loving mom, a daughter. I loved traveling. I traveled a lot for fun, for inspiration, for work. I became a speaker. I opened my own tech PR school where I trained Ukrainian PR practitioners to do international PR and to be successful PR generalists, knowing all the peculiarities of our profession. So my life was very full and very bright, I would say like that.
So, and you were able to combine those two degrees, the teaching and the marketing.
Yeah.
So let's kind of look at that kind of darker time then. February 2022, and Putin's army had massed on the border for a while. But, you know, how did life change, and what was your kind of instant reaction, and how did it affect you personally?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I think that for every Ukrainian, for each Ukrainian in the world, the life got that split before and after, because the invasion itself 400% changed the life of everybody in Ukraine. And in my case, it was a drastic shift in my career as well. Because before I would never imagine myself doing comms in defense tech or cybersecurity. And it's a big test for yourself, for being human and for being really committed to values. And I'm not saying about just human values, but for democratic values as well. On that morning, I was awakened by a phone call of my friend as a communicator who got so many incoming messages. I had that night mode, do not disturb mode. So I missed the beginning of the war. I slept well till 7 a.m. and that was the time when finally she could get through my do not disturb mode. And I understood that it's not a normal call on Thursday at 7 a.m. from a friend. I pick up the phone saying, has it all started? And she said, don't you know? And I heard the sounds of a very busy street already at 7 a.m. It's not that common for Kyiv streets. And she says, yeah, we are on our way to leave Kyiv. And I understood that it was not a very, it was not kind of a normal morning, because the streets were flooded with cars. There was a traffic jam at 7 a.m., even from my windows. And I saw that there were lines to get to ATMs, to drugstores, and it was obvious that people were, I wouldn't say panicking, but they were very busy getting ready for something. I gave a call to my husband, who was not at home. He was in the western part of Ukraine, and he said, I didn't wake you up, but I'm on my way home. Wait for me there. I was hesitant whether to wake up my daughter or to let her sleep longer, as I understood that that day is going to be very long. And in Ukraine, we have a saying that that very day has been lasting for 3 years already for now. Right. And that was exactly the case. So I knew that we need some, resources to deal with everything. And being as a head of comms back then, in-house in a corporate, we were working on a statement, public statement to be published on the website. I gave a call to my team. The guy said, like, I'm taking my cat to my friends to stay, to leave, and I'll be back once I get back online. So all the people were making those hard decisions, whether to stay or to leave, to flee, what to do. Back then, not all the bomb shelters were properly equipped. Some people need to spend time in, I don't know, very wet basements. They were not equipped with Wi-Fi, so it's not like that fancy condition that you can just open your laptop and do some statements. But I think it took us a couple of hours to figure out about the official statement. We put it on the website, and I remember that almost every minute I refresh my email, and there was some inbox, new email in my inbox from a foreign reporter, from a partner, from a customer, suggesting help or asking how we are, or giving some support, and we are very grateful. It was such a big lesson of humanity. And I remember that we had so many incoming requests that even our C-suite couldn't cope with everything. And I remember that I agreed to some interviews as well. And once one friend of mine just forwarded me some request from by the way, podcast host, from Washington, if I'm not mistaken. And she runs a podcast for people about mental health, about mental support. And she said, like, don't you mind if we record a podcast with you? I said, yeah, let's do that. And she also had that YouTube stream. And she asked me to turn on the lights. But we were not allowed back then. I don't know, it was rumored that, the lights and the windows serve as a kind of a signal. And I said, I just can't. So my curtains are open, but it's dark outside. She apologized. And I don't remember what we were talking about. Probably she asked about the way how I coped with everything, because it's about psychotherapy, about some resources for mental health. And when the episode was live, I remember Mac Rumors. It's one of the biggest Mac and Apple related outlets in the States. I worked a lot with them. And when I joined my previous company, they told me that somehow they didn't manage to build relations with Mac Rumors. But through years, I've built relations with them. And when that episode was out, they used their thousands, millions of followers, and they shared the podcast episode with me, saying, like, support Ukraine, help Ukraine, and stay safe, Julia. And I remember there was a wave of the words of support from different partners, and I was reading them crying.
Sorry, take it.
No. Thinking, what if it's my last day? And people started sharing some Substack newsletters with memories about meeting Julia from Kyiv. And that warmed up my heart so much, meaning that relations we built in our profession are meaningful, not just because this is a part of profession, but because we share some values, share some common thoughts, ideas. And it was great that our paths crossed once, and now they even give some fruit, some results. And when they gave me, the cheering up, stay safe, Julia, I was really, I didn't ask them to share it. And it was so unexpected and even unplanned, because they have a very tech audience, geeky audience. But when, the war happens, it's not a question about your profession. It's about your human side. Yeah. And I appreciate a lot. And I thank every partner and everybody who was with Ukraine back then. And it was a big lesson learned from, being in a human society. Yeah. This is how it started for me. And we didn't have any breaks, even at night. There was a short break because in 2 days, as I mentioned, we have a daughter, but in 2 days we have 3 kids staying with us. Right. Because some friends or friends of friends gave a call saying, hey, our daughter is a student in Kyiv, she's stuck in a dormitory, she's crying, take care of her, please take care of her, because we don't know, the trains were canceled. I said, of course. And so in a couple of days, we had already 3 kids to take care about. And I told them, girls, I promised your parents I'll take care of you. That's why we are going to a parking garage for a night. It was not very convenient to sleep in the car, but we slept in the car, and that was a short break, because back then it was not Wi-Fi in the parking garage. Now there is, but back then it was not equipped with it, and it was the only time during the day and during the night where I could have at least some break in communications. But when I got back to our apartment, the phone got connected to Wi-Fi, and I left it for probably 5 minutes, and it was buzzing nonstop, accepting all the messages. After that, I muted all the channels. Because I have very bad memories from those sounds. It's like, it brings you a new portion of anxiety, nonstop.
Just going back to that period, you told me that the PR army was something that you set up with a couple of friends or colleagues within 24 hours of that moment. How did that come about? What was your thinking at that point?
Yeah, you're right. So talking about my corporate side of professional involvement, that was everything related to the official communication on behalf of the company. As I mentioned, I also had my own project. It's Tech PR School, where I train professionals, colleagues, share best practices, and we have a community of alumni. I call them my students, but they are professionals, established professionals. I learn from them as well. This is just me who teaches them. And we set up a chat a while ago, and we brought news there, some discussions, like any community chat. But on the very first day of the full-scale invasion, I think that it took us a couple of hours to figure out what to do. And someone brought an idea to the chat saying, what if we use our expertise and our knowledge to outreach to media whom we know and tell the truth? Let's tell them literally what we see from our windows, what we hear from our neighbors, what we see or hear from our relatives in those territories where Russia already is advancing. And as I mentioned, I refreshed my email, and there was every minute a new inbox notification. And we decided that we need to unite our efforts and help to process incoming requests from media, because I suppose that Ukrainian official channels just couldn't cope with the avalanche, of incoming email requests from different media. So we understood that the interest is really, really high, and we can't afford ourselves not to spread that information. The thing is that the information shouldn't be just a property of someone. It should circulate. It should be spread. And what we did is we have a dedicated person who was working on, actually at the very beginning it was a team, who were working on a database of verified speakers on a number of topics. We had nuclear engineers. For example, when Russia seized Chernobyl nuclear power station, somehow media went to the Russian side for the commentary, and it was nonsense because they are aggressors, they are invaders. And we provided access to verified experts from Ukraine or international ones who are capable to comment on the story. We had a database of volunteers, officials, everybody who could provide commentary, and we started different streams of projects, not to make Ukraine silent, to make her vocal. I say her because in Ukrainian, Ukraine is feminative. Yeah, to make it vocal. This is how we worked for a while. So PR army still exists, but I'm not so much involved into it. And I would say that even for the first 7-8 months, we were just a pure initiative. No entity, no body registered, just, crazy idea, adrenaline, and that bitter taste of injustice.
Yeah, I guess that injustice side must have been the kind of lies and misinformation and disinformation that was being pushed out by the enemy as well.
Absolutely. And for now, what we see is that Europe invests millions in fighting disinformation. Meanwhile, Russia invests billions into spreading disinformation and misinformation. And what we should be really careful about is the terminology, because misinformation or disinformation sound very innocent. But I would refer to it as special cognitive operations because it's done deliberately. It's not, misspelled, misslip of the tongue. It's done deliberately for certain purposes. That's why the threats can be immense and can be difficult to deal with when they already happen. That's why pre-banking takes place, and it should be there. What else is important to say that with AI adoption and popularity, everybody is so excited that ChatGPT can write a LinkedIn post for them, but at the same time, AI can accelerate the spread of disinformation, can accelerate the appearance and creation of fake websites, of distribution of ransomware. So Russia is attacking on different spaces, on the factual battlefield, in cyberspace, and in information space. And it's not the case of Ukraine solely. It has a much bigger scale. We saw mingling in Romanian election, and in each country there is a wave of disinformation about Ukrainian displaced people. We are facing a very disturbing era of disinformation, and we as communicators, as angels of stories and narratives, should be very well equipped to detect it, to pre-bank and insert that strategic comms component into each communication piece we deliver. So it should be, it should be a responsibility on the professional level and on the civic level as well. So what we as citizens of our country can do not to let that disinformation be spread that fast, that wide, to multiple generations.
We have an old expression, the pen is mightier than the sword, which might kind of sum up what you're saying there. Are there any examples of misinformation and disinformation that you've lived through the last 3 years that that have really got you angry? Or
tons of it. For example, the fact that Ukrainian displaced people are dependent and count on social aid. And we need to check the numbers, but in fact that it was already proved that in, let's say, in Poland, the taxes from working displaced people much higher than the aid paid for Ukrainian displaced people. People speculate a lot on this topic that, Ukrainians steal their workplaces, places in kindergarten, what else, but everything should be checked with facts, with fact-checking. Calling Ukrainian Nazi, it was a very popular narrative that we are Nazi, that we are nationalists, but when there is a question of protecting borders, protecting lives of our compatriots, can it be called nationalism? Or how Russia twisted that narrative about taking kids from occupied territories, kidnapping kids from occupied territories. This is actually can be called an act of genocide, because the kids from occupied territories are brought to Ukraine and to Russia, and they erase their Ukrainian national identity. So kids, teenagers who managed to escape and who were returned to Ukraine, they tell how they were pressed to speak Russian, how they were imposed to military education, and they were forced to speak Russian, and they were beaten for speaking Ukrainian. So this is kind of like an act to erase national identity, which can be classified as genocidal. I think that we can have millions, if not billions, of examples of disinformation.
You've never left. You decided to stay in Kyiv. But can you tell us a little bit about your rationale and your thoughts and why you took that decision? Because it must have been a tough one. I understood that staying at home in Ukraine, I can do much more rather than as a foreigner abroad. I had very big support from my husband, and men are conscripted in Ukraine and cannot leave. And I understood that without him, I will have much more challenges ahead of me. And I decided to stay. It was not kind of, that statement, I'm staying. I understood that being at home will give me more power, resources to be helpful here for my country, rather than if I travel somewhere, taking care of so many things somewhere. And when people ask me, why didn't you leave? I say, why don't they leave? I stay in my home, in my home country, on my land, under my sky. Why would I live and not Russians who are invading a sovereign country? We have a great, a phenomenal, a fantastic, an awesome country. It's worth fighting for. It has such great nature, it has such great people, and literally when I tell people about Ukraine, sometimes they are
shocked that this is kind of a country. I remember I had a conversation with some guys in the Netherlands, and they were surprised that all the ladies in our circle, we were in a gym, all of us had 2 degrees. One of us is an engineer in aerospace, another one is fluent in 3 foreign languages. I was in tech and in marketing, and they say, sorry, are women allowed in Ukraine get higher education? Seriously, of course. And people discover Ukraine through those stories as well. And literally, we have absolutely a fantastic country to fight for. And probably that's why we are so attractive to Russia as well.
Yeah, no, I was, when we set up this interview, we had a quick Teams call. And although I'm an avid news reader, like a lot of people, and was aware of what was going on, kind of the conversation with you really hammered it home, because while we were chatting on a Teams call, the air raid sirens go off. Now you kind of we were saying, oh, do we have to cut the call short? And you just said, no, we'll just, and you peered over and looked out the window at a cat that you adopted, and you can tell the listeners about that story. But you told us, producer Dan and I, that the cat was still asleep, so that means we'll be okay, because they have a sixth sense of what's going on, and if the cat was scared, then it's time to leave. But it kind of struck me at that point, this is what life is really like in Kyiv. Just listening to the news and hearing stories, you don't really get it like that. And then we woke up the following day, my wife and I, and listened to the headlines, and it was the heaviest bombardment Kyiv had suffered. And our immediate reaction then was, I hope Yulia's all right. And I've just had a 20-minute Teams call with you. But that human side was suddenly brought home. And it must be hard for you kind of like to recognise sometimes the news reports of your country and your city being portrayed in a way that isn't the reality, or is so misconstrued.
When I think about that war reporting, in general, it looks like some dry stats, some numbers, some kilometers, some volumes, whatever. But from us, it's someone's life, it's someone's destiny, it's someone's family, it's someone's apartment. And the most disturbing part and the most depressing part and the saddest part of it is that circle is narrowing down. And I think that there is anybody left in Ukraine who was not affected by the war. At least one member of the family is either at war or was there or was killed or wounded. Someone lost their homes. I have my big own pain is my grandparents' house near Bakhmut. It's the place I call where my soul lived. I spent all my summer vacations there, and now the town of Bakhmut is burnt to ashes, leveled to the ground. Nothing remained, and it says that it will take up to 9 years just to demine those territories. They are just packed with mines. And this is terrible, just terrible. For some people, like when we talk about immigration, people make that decision wisely. They analyze the situation and they make the decision to move somewhere. In our case, it was not our decision. It was someone's decision in Russia when they invaded. They seized our territories, damaged our house, ruined our lives. And that was not our choice. And I don't think if I ever go there again. My mom, as she was born there and her parents are buried there, she says, Julia, someone sent me a video with Russian tanks going on the cemeteries, like tanks going on the cemeteries. And of course, it will be impossible to restore the cemetery, even the memory of people who passed away some time ago. And this is just terrible, that they get rid of all the memories of our roots. For example, in our case, all family albums were in that house, which is not there from satellite. We saw that there was a missile hit in the garden and there is no roof. And if there is no roof, it means that all the precipitation goes down the house. And we didn't think that it will last that long and that it will be the last time we saw our house when we saw it. Like all the family albums of all our family history is there because it was our grandparents' house and it was not a question that we need to store them somewhere else. We have so many disturbing stories about women became widows at the age of 22 or 25. So much grief and sadness. And what breaks my heart is that it's happening in the center of Europe in the 21st century. Yeah.
I think that's why, from my perspective as a communications professional, it's important that we and other comms professionals keep telling your stories and keep giving you the kind of opportunity and the oxygen to tell these stories.
Oxygen, I like that metaphor. Thank you.
You haven't given up though. Your career carries on despite all this kind of trauma that's happening around you. Tell us about the career and the firm that you've set up.
Thank you for that positive perspective that you brought into this sad conversation. Yeah, by the way, I was in London back then. It was a year ago, and I was sleepless, and I was thinking what I should do next. And which step I should take to proceed and to keep on fighting. And I played around with words, and somehow I ended up with the word calibrate. It has a lot to do with military, with defense. Then it has some idea of scaling, like, a person of a bigger caliber, of scaling, and of measurement. To calibrate, to measure, to set up measurements. And I was wondering, what I can do around this great word, which is so meaningful. And I sent a message to my husband at 1 a.m. in London time, 3 p.m. in Kyiv time. Do you like the name Calibrated? And I saw that there was, a signal that he read, but never responded. Why would he at 3 a.m.? And then the next morning I said, I want to open an agency that will cover the topics of defense tech, cybersecurity, and information security. I invited my amazing co-founders that I've known since the time of my tech career and PR army times. And 1 year ago, almost at this time, we set up an agency called Calibrated. And we understood that we all share the same vision, the same values about building an agency with those tracks that are in the biggest demand in our country and in our society, and can be also beneficial and helpful to share this experience with the rest of the world. Because unfortunately, Ukraine is the nearest neighbor, and who knows how will Russia advance and proceed, and what lessons we can teach to the rest of the world. And this is how we started Calibrated, and have been doing it and developing it for a year already.
So which sectors do you work in specifically?
So it's defense tech.
Right.
So we work as a comms agency for the startup in Ukraine in defense tech who are looking for expanding knowledge about them abroad. And vice versa, when we have big manufacturers from abroad who are looking for press offices in Ukraine. Right. So that combination is a great one. Then cybersecurity. We have clients with cybersecurity legacy in Ukraine, and again the lessons learned, expertise that can be translated, that can be delivered abroad, and information security. We also provide trainings in disinformation, misinformation, all those cognitive warfare cases for different clients like governments, different official bodies, even businesses. And we also ran a survey understanding what's the level of cybersecurity awareness in Ukrainian businesses. And unfortunately, being so vulnerable due to the proximity to Russia and being so exposed to Russian cyber attacks, the level of understanding is so low, the understanding of the threat. So still a lot to do in home and abroad.
Wow, you would think by now it would be very kind of high level. You would.
Yeah, because we have multiple cases when Russia attacks critical infrastructure. For example, in April, there was a massive cyber attack on Ukrainian railway. And now it's the main logistics body, arterium, that unites the front line and the West. All the logistics with passengers happen thanks to the railway. We don't have civil flights. We need to take either buses or railways. And they were heavily attacked digitally, in cyberspace. And even for the military, for our soldiers to come back home for vacation, they can take only the railway. And there was a massive attack when the site was not available, apps were not available to buy the tickets. And it was a big threat and a big loss for them. And even that case is not very eloquent for the rest of business representatives. Me, as I deal a lot with comms people, ask from time to time, do you have a crisis comms plan in case of a cyber incident? Almost none.
None. 1 year in then in this new business, how are things going? Is it? It's hard enough to start a business. I know this myself, but to do it in a situation that you found yourself in, has that proved somehow advantageous because of the areas that you've decided to move into, or is it difficult?
It is difficult because of the current situation on microeconomic level, micro, all the levels. It's challenging, and probably it's the worst time to start a business. And in Ukraine, on top of that, you also have that constant stress and burnout. Yesterday, I was contacted by one client who asked for consultancy, but she wanted to reschedule our call as her dog got a heart attack because of explosions. And that's what we talked about, the pets, and the pets are vulnerable and humans are vulnerable, and it's not normal to have sleepless nights for almost 3 years and always worry about the news in places where there is no front line, and actually worrying about your relatives, friends, dearests who actually fight at the front line or killed. So this is terrible. You face all the time that piece of news. Our social media look like, the contrast of human society. One story is about, a new harvest of strawberry, and the other one is about someone whom was killed in action. The next one is asking for donations, and the next one is having a concert in the underground. So it's just, I don't know, like what contrast.
What emotions do you go through in that?
Yes, all the time. It's like, a roller coaster. Our social media looks like an asylum profile because, like, literally, and this is our life, and we've been going through it for 3 years already. It's never that rejoicing. It's never that overjoyed. It's always either this or this, either this or this. I remember I once arrived to the States, and I was at the customs, just at the airport. Of course, what I do after 8 hours of being off, I turn on the internet and I check the news. And it was a while ago, and there was news that Russian troops left Kherson, and everybody was celebrating it. And I couldn't help crying over the news. So one more city was liberated. And the customs officer asked for my documents. I gave it, but I was crying. She said, what happened? I said, Kherson is liberated. She said, I'm sorry about that. I said, no. It's a good piece of news. And I just couldn't cope because the tension is so high that you are overjoyed over such types of news that you can cry at the customs at the airport. Yeah, so talking about the challenges, it's pretty challenging, but we are driven by mission. And this is the best part of our agency job. And yeah, we have some clients, we are building our portfolio step by step, we are growing, we are developing. Our mission drives us a lot. But the thing is, it's so difficult to balance in this war-life. We don't say like work-life balance. We say work-war-life balance.
Wow, yeah, and like you've said, you've got international clients that look to you for. But again, they must be kind of a little bit worried about doing business in a country that's, under attack like that.
But the clients we work with are mainly defense tech manufacturers or cybersecurity clients, so they are pretty much prepared and aware of what to expect.
You've talked about that kind of dynamic of writing a press release one day and then an obituary the following day, and that whole kind of roller coaster. What have you kind of learned about your own ability to kind of cope in the last 3 years, and what kind of a person you think it's made you?
It was popular to say, it was even modern to say something about Ukrainian resilience. But in my case, I think that it's absence of choice. We don't have other choice. It's a matter of our existence. If we fail, we won't be as a nation. Ukraine as a nation won't exist, no matter what Russia will shape it will paint it. Yeah. They want to eradicate us as a nation. They want to eradicate our culture, our language. So for us, it's a matter of our future. We don't have a right to have, that depression. We don't have a right to be tired because it's a matter of our existence. If we fail now, our generations, future generations, they won't just be there. So it's not like leaving there a chance for them. there won't be any chance. There won't be any future generations if we fail now.
How can someone like me help?
First of all, thank you for this opportunity, for this oxygen, like you put it. I would ask everybody who would listen to this story to probably have at least some interest in what's going on in Ukraine. And as professionals, I would also advise foreign professionals abroad, engage more Ukrainian professionals as speakers at the event or as consultants, as training providers, because we've learned those lessons very hard, and we can teach others not to have our mistakes, but to avoid them and to get prepared, to get ready. Unfortunately, we are not at the threshold of a paradise that the world promises us, not at all. The situation will be just more difficult. The societies will be more fragmented. The number of channels of communications will just grow. Future generations are so misled by the situation with media. They have other media icons and idols who hardly ever do any fact-checking, so it will be very difficult to manipulate masses for those who is looking at them as kind of a source of power and some support. I think that the lessons we have right now are very painful, tragic, and no one should go through that, but the experience accumulated, and we can teach as well. And of course, like, find the resources you trust, donate to Ukraine. We still desperately need support on the front line for the humanitarian missions, and even in terms of information. Never ignore a call for help, or at least some piece of news posted by your Ukrainian friend or someone you know, because in those situations we feel that we are not alone, that there is some support behind us.
And what do you think is the kind of danger of doing nothing? If we in the West do nothing?
You will be surprised and shocked unpleasantly how quick that plague can develop and what consequences even developed countries may face. So I think it's not my thought. So it's not a local conflict. It's not a local war. It's all about new paradigm, dictatorship versus democracies. And if you stand for human values, if you stay for respect, liberty, freedom, democracy, you should not ignore what's going on in Europe in the 21st century, in Ukraine.
Julia, when you came in, you kindly came bearing gifts of this pin badge of a rooster.
Yeah.
Tell us about the rooster and what it symbolises.
Yeah, I will send you a link about this rooster. It's a legendary rooster. Actually, it's a symbol of Ukrainian resilience in some way. There was a massive missile attack by Russians of one of the residential area near Kyiv. And when the rescue team arrived and reporters arrived, they took pictures of some block of flats without the front wall, which was damaged. And there was a room, a kitchen of someone that was partially destroyed. But on the cupboard, there was a rooster. It's called rooster from Borodyanka. It's a cultural artifact. It's a craft. and in the form of a rooster. And that became a symbol. So it was still there, dusted, dirty, but it was still there. No wall, a lot of damage, tiles off the walls, but the rooster is there. And there was a joke, a lot of memes. Memes are comms channel as well. So when you ask Ukrainian, how are you? And they will respond like a rooster from Borodyanka, everybody will understand. Everything is damaged around, but you're holding it still. Yeah, and this is, in Ukrainian, it's called Pivnik. And Pivnik is a charity fund that raises money to rehabilitate our veterans who go back from the front line and have problems with hearing, with hear loss. And this is very symbolic that rooster is very sonic, yes. So all the funds from selling of these roosters go to support Ukrainian veterans and to help them recover and to recover their hearing or to have some facilities to help them hear. Yeah, so I hope you will wear it proudly.
I'm going to say I will wear this with pride, and I will tell the story of the rooster everywhere I go, because I'm sure it'll get comment. Just as we wrap up then, what gives you hope?
It's more and more difficult to find hope. But what I feel hopeful is that we are not alone. We are still not alone, as Russia outnumbers Ukraine. It's a fact. Don't be misled or illusioned that, I don't know, the good must fight and the evil must be conquered. Not at all. But when we are having that support by our Western partners, friends from abroad, I understand that we are not alone. And even that you didn't ignore this topic and traveled all the way from Manchester to London, it gives me a sign that I have support. Thank you for that. And what else gives hope is actually babies born in Ukraine. I feel very sorry for their parents and moms who need to upbring their kids under these terrible, non-human conditions. But still, in our family, for example, my cousin is in the army, and his division was rotated from one place to another, and he had just one night at his home between the rotations. And in 9 months, he and his wife got a newborn baby. And it was such a symbol for me that he sees death, he sees wars, and one night brought their baby. And this is kind of very symbolic that still love wins. It goes through all the hardships, difficulties, challenges, stress, depression, absence of home, but it's still there. So I think that new babies who were born right now, it's kind of a statement, it's kind of a promise that we will exist. And I will tell you one story. So I usually tell this story during my public talks. Before the war, I went to Paris. And in Paris, it was a solo trip. Back then, it was probably my intuition that something's gonna happen, but I didn't interpret that for me. It was just before the invasion, like 20 days before. And I bought a dress. And when I was... I was trying it on, and the shop assistant, she was speaking French, and my French is very basic, but it was enough to respond to her question. She said, "À quelle occasion achetez-vous la robe?" What's the occasion to buy the dress? And my level of French was enough to respond the truth. I said, la vie est l'occasion. Life is the occasion. And she said, I like you. So I bought the dress, and it's like milky white color. And in 20 days, Putin invaded Ukraine. And of course, I never wore it because it's white, it's light, it's not for February, and especially it's not for the invasion and life during the invasion. And in 10 months, I was in Paris again. I was there with my daughter, and I told her, let me check if that sales assistant is there. And she said, Mom, let's not bother her. And somehow she was there. It was her shift. I approached her and I said, do you remember that 10 months ago I bought a dress from you? And she was a bit at a loss because I was crying. It was a mix of my feelings of French, English, tears. And she said, do you want to return it after 10 months? I said, no way. I just want to tell you that I failed to wear it. I bought it to celebrate life. And I didn't live during these 10 months because Russia invaded Ukraine. And she said, she gave me a hug. She suggested me help. But then she said, please make a promise, leave. Use this dress to live your best life. And that year we celebrated our 20th anniversary with my husband, and I wore that dress. And I read the book called The Choice by a Jewish survivor of concentration camp. And she made a statement that my revenge to Hitler will be 3 generations after me. And I made her swear that it will be my revenge to Putin and Russia generations after me. I wore that dress for our wedding anniversary. I wore that dress for the wedding of my ex-colleague, and after London, I'm heading to the wedding of another colleague and student to celebrate life.
Excellent. What a brilliant way to end today's podcast. Yulia Petryk, thank you so much for sharing those stories, and let me just wish you all the very best. You're in our hearts and our thoughts and prayers.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to PR in the Real World. If you've enjoyed this episode, we'd love it if you could subscribe to the podcast and leave us a quick review. Your support really helps spread the word and reach more marketing and PR professionals just like you. And don't forget to share this podcast with your colleagues or anyone who'd benefit from the insights we share. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time for more tips, strategies and real world stories from the PR frontlines.